Hey everyone, Ryan Young, KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu. I hope you're doing well. I'm headed out to do some shopping, but it's been snowing of late, and as you can see from my windshield, it's got ice on it. So I figured, you know what? I'll just take a moment and I'll do a quick video for you guys. The other day, I saw on Facebook and a thing called MMA Chronicles. They had posted a picture of Gordon Ryan, the king, saying that he doesn't regret anything that he did, including the drugs and all that. I don't say drugs as in we're thinking drug addict type of drugs. I'm thinking drugs like PEDs, right? Performance enhancing drugs, like your steroids, your testosterone, your other stuff that help you to heal so that you can be more successful. In his case, as an athlete. Now there are. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a comfortable way to hold this. There are some people who like to say, well, yes, you are the best and nobody's beat you lately, or, some people have beat him in the past, but it's a few and far between thing. And his thinking is, well, I don't care. All I care about at the end of the day is that I'm the GOAT and the legacy that I leave behind. And, legacy just has to do with past events that I guess you could be remembered by, or you could think of the progression of how he went and became the greatest and then defended it, and whether he did drugs or not, that's not really a thing. And I kind of agree with that to a certain point. For instance, every one of you guys know KAATARO Jiu-Jitsu's Rickson Gracie team, and in our mind, the best expression of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was that of Rickson Gracie himself. Now, was he drug-free? Yeah. The whole time that I knew him, he was between 185 and 205 pounds. And he only got toward 205 pounds when he started to approach his mid to late 30s. And that kind of is a natural thing. Those of you who have gotten to age 40 or 50, you notice that you just get heavier over time. And some of it has to do with muscle maturity, but a lot of it has to do with we tend to hold more body fat inside of our muscles and underneath our muscles and all that kind of stuff as we get older. When you're young, you're lean all over, but as you get old, you start to pick up some body fat in different spaces, right? Which then contributes to weight gain. So for instance, when I was in my 20s, I was probably about 140, 145. And it was so hard for me to get to 150. And now here I am walking around at 168. And I guess on the skin level, yeah, I could lose a couple of pounds versus what I had. But even if I were to get ripped, I'd still be heavier than what I was when I was in my 20s. At any rate, Rickson, as far as I know, never ever used any kind of drugs. So then people will say, well, Gordon Ryan needs to have an asterisk behind his name or next to his name because he was on drugs. Well, how do we know the others that he went up against were not as well? And even if they were, when you're thinking of being the best in any sport, you gotta kind of think that it's gonna happen. And there's no way you can really stop it. So in my mind, I'll give you an example. Lance Armstrong is the greatest cycler that has ever lived. And yes, he was on EPO or whatever the blood doping thing was, but they all were. There is no way you're going to be making, you're going to risk millions of dollars a year in sponsorship money, salary, and what have you, if you're not going to risk it by letting it go to chance, right? That you're not going to be using anything. But at the end of the day, if other cyclists were using, they weren't as good as Lance Armstrong, and he was using, right? I had done a video way back when, probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, maybe not that far, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, regarding performance enhancing drugs in jiu-jitsu and whether it's fair or not. And you're going to have people on both sides of the equation. On the one side, they're going to say that's bullshit and it's not fair and you're cheating. Well, and I also pointed this out in the video as well, if everybody else in the tournament is doing it, is it cheating? Yeah, maybe, right? It's a values thing. You can do it any way you want. You can say, you know what, I want to be the greatest and not do any drugs. But the truth of the matter is that to be the greatest, you almost have to. NFL players, right? They have unfair advantages versus regular people that don't play in the NFL. I can't say that I know that they do, but you can probably figure that they do use some kind of drugs. Olympians, they use it for sure. Remember Marion Jones and how she won those 4 or so gold medals at the Sydney Games, and they eventually caught up with her and found out that the drugs she was using were not really discovered yet. And I think Gordon Ryan had kind of talked about that as well, about how he can afford to buy the designer drugs that nobody else has, or the ones that cannot be detected. You know, the thing is, no matter what athlete you talk about, and they say this certain is the person is greatest, this greatest, that great, it never is greatest drug-free athlete. The greatest is the drug-free one, whereas the one who is not the drug-free one is not the greatest. No, it doesn't work that way. You're the greatest regardless. Because really, if you're going to need to do the work, and that you cannot just be some Joe Schmo on drugs, on steroids, that'll make you the best. It doesn't work that way. You have to train, you have to be technically proficient in whatever activity you do. So, would I put an asterisk after Gordon Ryan? Nah. Because others are using as well, and in order to be the best, you almost have to do what you need to do. Okay, well, fine. What if you say, well, the greatest should not be using drugs? Okay, well, should the greatest also not have a sports and conditioning coach? Should they also not have a dietitian or a nutritionist? Should they not have special training facilities? Should they not have the best training coaches, right? These are all things that a top athlete typically has in their stable and in their things that they can do, right? Access to resources. Because you need to have the raw talent, but you also need the work ethic. But when you have people that have also the raw talent and the work ethic, then you have to get that next thing. Okay, so I'll eat better. Well, what is eating better? Well, it depends on what you know and who you know, right? Let's say you have access to a Nobel Prize winning nutritionist and who knows all the ins and outs of the human body, how it works, when it works, all that kind of stuff. Is that cheating because you have access to him, right? Well, but he could also be hired out by others. Well, what if you have enough money to where you say, you know what, you're working for me and only me, right? So nobody else has access to him. Would that be cheating? Would that mean that you need to have an asterisk next to your name? No, right? Where do you draw the line in saying something is cheating and not, right? They're all different forms of an edge that you get on your opponents. And good athletes, great athletes, will get the edge on all their players that they're competing against. Well, what about another thing? Here's another angle. I'm just being ridiculous now. What about shit talking? Remember when you'd have players like Larry Bird, I guess, a basketball player. They talk about how he would get in the head of his opponents, right? He didn't have the best tools to start with. He wasn't the greatest athlete, wasn't the fastest, wasn't the biggest, wasn't the strongest, but he was technically sound. And what he would do is he would talk crap to his opponents. He would get in their heads. Now, is that an unfair advantage? Do you need to asterisk that one? No. I mean, it's outside of the rules, right? Saying stuff like, I'm going to do whatever. You can insult them any way you want. You can think of any number of insults you can think. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But I do it to get in the head of somebody. Even though your opponent may be better, right? There were people that I trained with years ago. I don't do this anymore, but back when I didn't train enough, I was a purple belt. I was pretty good. But I was also kind of wily as well. Kind of a wise ass. And there's this one kid that was better than me. He was also a purple belt. But I'd eat his lunch all the time, even though he trained 1-2 times a day and I trained once a month. But I would just talk shit to him and I would get into his head and I would end up taking what I wanted from him. One day, years later, I asked him, once he started beating me, I asked him, you could always have beaten me. What made you start beating me now? And he says, well, truthfully, you should talk so much trash. I was intimidated by you, so I'd be afraid. Well, that was the advantage I had. That was my edge on him. So when it comes to you, you have to do what you think is best for you. Competitive bodybuilders, they go on all kind of crap, including human growth hormone, right? And a lot of bodybuilders, they don't live very long. You know, the top competitive bodybuilders, it's not uncommon for them to go in their 40s because they beat their bodies up so much through the weight cuts, training, and overeating, really, to fund all those muscles. You know, with all the joints that they get messed up. You know, Ronnie Coleman, one of the greatest Mr. Olympias of all time, can barely walk, if even, right? Last I heard, he was using a walker or a cane or whatever to walk. But he's the greatest bodybuilder that's ever lived. Now, he did what it took to be the greatest. And Gordon Ryan is doing the same thing. Now, Rickson didn't have to do it because in his day and age, there weren't a lot of people that were doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. It was really Gracie Jiu-Jitsu against the world. And at that time, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was the secret weapon. So you could say, right, growing up in Hawaii, we'd have a term when you get to a fight, it's called up and up, right? That means we're not, if it goes to the ground, we're going to stop, we're going to get up, we're going to start again. Well, if a guy's a better boxer than I am, I don't know how to box at all, right? And he fights well on his feet, but I'm a wrestler. Why would I go up and up with someone who's a boxer? I'm not. I'm going to take him down. I'm going to pound him out, right? So now, is that cheating? I don't know, right? I guess it depends on what you agreed upon, right? Floyd Mayweather fighting, what's his name? Conor McGregor. Well, the agreement was that it's a boxing match. It's not an MMA fight, which means Conor couldn't kick him. You know, one kick in Floyd's legs, Floyd would have gone down. And he would have been crying, right? Because he would have gotten a massive leg kick. And one kick, he'll drop and he won't get up. But if it's boxing and you have the rules and you agree to them, that's good. Now, with regard to, you know, athletes like a grappler or a jiu-jitsu practitioner, and they enter these sport tournaments, these sanctioned events, if the events want to ensure, or at least do the best to ensure, that there is no cheating, and cheating involves performance-enhancing drugs, then they need to test for it. If they're not going to test for it, and they're just going to go kind of on maybe random testing, you know, once every few months because of the cost of implementing those tests, or they're going to just go based on your honor, right? Nobody has honor. Not when it comes to winning, right? It's just, those days are kind of gone. But remember, even in the old days, when I say old days, let's talk about during the Western times in the United States, right? You know, they'll say, you know, I'm gonna, you know, fight with honor, but at the end of the day, somebody shoots somebody and shoots them without them expecting it. Well, you know, of course they have gunfights, you know, so you can expect it. Then it's just because who's the fastest one. But at the end of the day, if you're competing and you're looking to be the greatest, then you're going to take every edge that you can. And that's really all I've got with regard to that. And that's just my opinion. And that's, if that's even worth 2 cents to you. But I want to thank you for watching this video. And I want you to, you know, and share it if you think this is something that's worth sharing. And also hit the thumbs up button. And also subscribe so you can get future videos. I've been kind of turning them out lately only because I've had a lot of time. Because this weather sucks. And I've been a little sick. So when I'm sick, I have more time because I can't do as much. But, you know, feel free to come visit us at one of our academies. We have 2 of them. One of them, Combat Jiu-Jitsu Irvine in Laguna Hills, California, and Combat Jiu-Jitsu Dallas Fort Worth in Flower Mound, Texas. You can also visit us online at combatjiujitsu.com. You can also sign up on our website for our online lessons. You can also, if you'd like to get on a conference call with me and you'd like to go over some stuff, whether it comes to, you know, jiu-jitsu training, whether it comes to personal mindset things, or if you'd like to talk about career or financial services, I can help you with that. Just go ahead and click on that Clarity link below. Other than that, that's all I got for you. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Take care. Happy training. Bye now.